This evening, we find ourselves in this precarious moment of global affairs, and I'm sorry to keep sort of drumming on about the same sort of thing, but this is the very foundation of Western society, NATO, which is showing such deep sort of fistula gaps, and it's happening not because of military failure, but because of political exhaustion, strategic hesitation, perhaps most dangerously because of the personal inclination of individual leaders. And at the heart of this chaos is the Trump-Putin relationship, a dynamic that has long puzzled analysts. Putin is, quite frankly, in trouble. And he is getting help from the last source. One would expect he's getting help from America. Russia is spending 47% of its GDP on defense, a figure that would be unsustainable even for the United States. His economy is crumbling. Sanctions have turned his vast oil reserves into assets he cannot sell. And Russia's reliance on shadow economies with China and Iran is barely keeping it afloat. Inflation is creeping dangerously close to hyperinflation. You only have to try to go to the shops to get some butter. Labour shortages exacerbated by war casualties and an exodus of skilled workers are tightening the noose around the Kremlin. Putin is backed into a corner. And when a dictator is cornered, he becomes reckless. Of course he does. Now, can he keep going? Yes. Yes. Russia is a very big country. But is there going to come a point? Is there going to become a point when Putin can go no further? And that, I think, is rapidly approaching. So why then does Donald Trump appear to be offering him an exit? Because Trump sees himself as the ultimate deal maker, and his messaging on platforms like Truth Social makes it clear he believes that only he can bring the peace, like some sort of messiah. But the terms of that peace look increasingly like appeasement, and Trump's administration has flouted a deal that would grant the US sweeping economic control over Ukraine's natural resources, a modern-day version of the Versailles Treaty reparations, only this time being imposed on the victim rather than the aggressor. According to leaked reports, the US would control 50% of Ukraine's revenue from resource extraction, have the right of first refusal for purchasing minerals, establish control of Ukraine's exports, meaning that Kyiv pays the US before it can rebuild its own country. These are terms normally imposed on defeated aggressors, not on the ally fighting for its survival. This puts Zelensky in an impossible position. Accepting these terms means mortgaging Ukraine's future for short-term survival, while the country is supposed to be his ally, is knocking back champagne with his enemy. Rejecting these terms risks losing US support altogether, a nightmare scenario given Ukraine's dependence on Western military aid. Meanwhile, as Ukraine fights tooth and nail to reclaim its territory, NATO is fracturing under the weight of uncertainty. Trump has made it clear Ukraine will never join NATO. This validates one of Putin's primary war justifications. Europe must defend itself. US strategic withdrawal leaves European nations scrambling to increase defense spending, a process that takes years, not months. And sanctions may be lifted, and Trump has hinted at lifting economic measures that have until now constrained Russia's military expansion. At the Munich Security Conference, European leaders were visibly shaken. J.D. Vance, now vice president, doubled down on Trump's view that Europe's biggest problem is not Russia, but its own internal censorship policies. Instead of looking at the serious war, he looks at culture messing. And he even met with AfD leaders in Germany, snubbing mainstream European politicians. How is that possible? The transatlantic divide has never been clearer. And you just think, and he looked so perfect. Even the eyeliner was unsmeared. Despite what Russian propaganda claims, Ukraine is still advancing, though, on multiple fronts. Despite the propagandists even on this channel that want us to believe that Russia is retaking Piszczany near Pokrovsk. No, Ukraine sources say they decisively took the town a day ago. Yet Russian disinformation campaigns are flooding Western media, falsely portraying an unstoppable Russian advance. It's not true. This is the Kremlin's classic playbook. Fabricate battlefield victories to demoralize Western supporters, exploit Trump's skepticism of NATO to weaken US commitment, encourage European divisions to prevent a unified response. But now they've got somebody helping them. Now they've got Trump helping them. If unchecked, Russia's strategy could allow Putin to stall Western support long enough for his battered military to regroup. And if Trump continues with his isolationist rhetoric, Europe will be forced to rearm at an unprecedented rate, and it may still be too late. Ukraine will have to fight for every inch of sovereignty with dwindling Western support, and Russia, despite its economic struggles, will be emboldened and will see the West's disunity as an opportunity. China will be watching closely. Trump has frequently said he wants the killing to stop, but peace without deterrence is not peace, it's surrender. And Vladimir Putin is not looking for a fair settlement. He is looking for survival. He's looking for time away from the fridge. And if the US hands him an easy way out, that cycle of aggression will continue just as quickly as he can stick a lollipop in his mouth and suck. This is not just about Ukraine. It's about whether the West still has the willpower to stand against authoritarian expansionism. And if NATO cracks, the consequences will stretch far beyond Europe. Because when America disengages, the wolves circle.